Hi, welcome to the Occultists Anonymous Rookery Chronicle Q&A. Sponsored, I guess, technically, by Roll20. And all you lovely patrons who are out there supporting us and hanging out with us. And Chris normally does this, and so this is I didn't realize how much I missed being able to tell you guys that I love you and thank you for your support. Thank you too. A Wild Doc has appeared from ... Adele, Al, Alan Michael, Alexander, Bernie, Blood Angel, Brandon, Chris, Daniel, Delore, Emil, Funzo Suruali, George, Jack, Jenny, Josh, Kamo, Not a Mage of Not Australia, Cat Feathers, Crazy Man 1772, Melissa, Michael, Milo V3, Moku, Neo, No, It's Patrick, Noba, Other Michael, Perry, Puppeteer, Ramon, Ryan, Shaksara, Sina, Terran, The Arcane, Thomas, Toast, Usif Sama, Vortex, Woodfoot, and Zoltan. Thank you all very much for your support. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you for hanging out with us. Cool. I have too many tabs open. Let's get us over here. So
that's like my brain on a regular basis.
Right. It's like where did I go? Too many things. That's actually basically it for me. This is the Q&A, and for the most part, the four of us who are here in the Rookery can actually answer the questions, but what are we going to have Ralph do? Well, Ralph is going to ask us all the questions and tell us to shut the fuck up when it's time to move on to the next question. And we've been talking. So, Ralph, the floor is all yours, man.
Thank you. And of course, I might be a little more graceful or compassionate when I suggested we should move on, considering I'm still the new guy. I don't want to get kicked out for being rude to everybody else. You know it. All right, so I think this could be really fun because everyone was really thoughtful in providing their questions in Q&A. And I know you four all have a lot of feelings about the game that you played for all of our entertainment and we were able to watch happen for so many months. So I would like to start by asking each of you what your favorite moment was in the series. If you could rank
whole series.
Right.
Yeah,
160 episodes.
What comes to
do
mind?
The math. Yeah.
Yeah. What just comes to mind? You know?
I mean, for me, it's legitimately going to be I almost said the temple, because in my head, that's what it is. But the Ebon Phoenix Temple was by far my favorite thing. I loved it, especially considering I was super stressed because I thought Chris was like, I'm so done with this place. No. Songbird was done with this place. Chris was loving it. Once I got that off stream, I was like, oh, I probably would have not skipped 2 rooms that were actually in there. But oh well. It was a lot of fun. And then having a cliffhanger of Songbird is really going to punch Supe, the Incan god of death. I'm sure this will be fine. Yeah, it was terrific.
It was a great choice. Greg?
For me, it's got to be the founding of the legacy.
Mm-hmm.
That whole summoning and Drew pulling out of his ass the maiden, the matron, and the crone, which just pushed all of my happy buttons. It was just an amazing moment for me. I just loved it. I went and got artwork done of it. It was so great.
Yeah, I think we were celebrating you when that happened.
And that was just like a gift from Drew to me. Felt like it was just so
appreciate
powerful.
That. Yeah. Ash, how about you?
I really liked the whole paranoia run up to 35 when things were getting wild, and then including that whole that was very exciting. And also, we didn't know what was going on.
Oh.
So, because John didn't tell us anything.
Oh, that's right.
So,
For 35 episodes, we had zero idea. And it was like these little things of we don't know where he
love
lives.
Beck. She's great.
We don't know anything about him. Okay. God, I don't even know.
Had a lot of good moments.
I will say, along Craig's lines, the first time that intersection shows up.
This is our big first.
Giant.
Well, it wasn't our big first summoning, but it was.
It was the first one, right?
It was a big deal.
No, because
I think I was the first one to summon.
Wasn't it weird?
Yeah, the
doing
magical
summoning?
girl night. We did a summoning.
Oh, right.
Oh yeah, summoned to Moira.
I wasn't there for that.
That's right. Yeah. Because that was the first episode of Magical Girls Night.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but just the big scarified eye coverage angel showing up and just basically just saying, "Come at me, bro."
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that summoning and interacting with supernals is one of the most interesting and most flavorful parts of the system. So that's all of those things are always going to really.
You're muted now, Chris.
Or just didn't.
No, I'm not talking loud enough. I kind of trailed off and didn't say anything. So.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Just saw your lips moving. I agree. It makes sense. Supernal beings are a really interesting aspect of Mage, and the system in second edition is really nice because it's achievable. You can bring them into the game, even if you're relatively inexperienced. And it seems like there are a lot of
as inexperienced as we thought.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of mechanical aspects that make telling a story straightforward. And so before we hop into the list that we've curated, there's one more question I'd like to ask the four of you, which is similar to the last question. What is some mechanical aspect of Mage that you wish you had employed more frequently?
I mean, I'll jump in. I wish I had made more cabals. More cabals, and some of that was from a misread of the group and thinking they wanted to do action adventure stuff, and turns out no, actually they were really into doing some like politicking, not a ton of it, but they're in. I was like, I really could have made some more opposition and rival cabals within the Pentacle, within the Seer. Well, those would be pylons, but I wish I had done that a little bit more so that they had developed enemies and friends and rivals and all that.
Like Borsine having a cabal, or he has a cabal, or they have a cabal, but having them be a sort of antagonist thing, and then at a later point joining Weird's legacy would have been a really cool turn.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
We actually talked about this off screen a couple of weeks or so ago. I think the Nimbus rules are bad and should feel bad, and I want to use home rule ones to make them better. Because it's such a flavorful, like, absolute, like, you're just throwing your gnosis into the world, like your supernal awakened soul made manifest, and that should be more than,
a passing thought.
Here's the 160 episodes we did it once on screen.
Yep.
That's telling something.
For me, I think it was the spells that are written in the book are like, with the benefit of hindsight, are there for inspiration.
Yeah.
The kind of things you can do, but my mind got into that sort of D&D sort of mode, like that's a spell and that's a spell and that's a spell. So I didn't do a lot of creative thaumaturgy at the start. So towards the end, I got a lot better at that, I think. Other people may have different opinions, but that whole creative aspect of it, of just state the effect you want to create in the world, and then we'll figure out where it falls.
Yep.
Didn't do much of that in the beginning.
I wish we had used familiars more.
Ooh.
Because we had them.
And then we all forgot about them.
We all forgot about them all the time.
I never forgot about them, but they're so fragile and they're so precious, and I love them so much.
And the thing is, they're not fragile. They're not at all.
They're not pets either. They're like
beefier than you are.
They're like people that you've made a
Even
deal
rank
with.
1.
Yeah. And if
it looks like a little bird, but it's not a cute little bird you need to protect. It's a spirit.
Yes.
And if it does die, it shows up next to you. Yeah.
What
I
would
think
you
also
like?
part of that. Sorry.
It's okay. I was just going to
part of that
ask
might have been
Ash to elaborate.
Somebody go.
Oh,
Ralph,
I was
continue.
going to ask Ash, if you can elaborate on how you would have liked to see them used or participate more.
Like, I had a bunch of really neat Numina picked for Gabe, and I had his stats, and I intended him to do things. And that never happened. Like, he had left-handed spanner to go around. Like, his,
Ban.
yeah, the one that you have to do was to basically cause mischief. Like, he has to go break something and ruin someone's day. Just, like, in a mischievous way. I gave him Firestarter, because he died in a fire. And I thought that was good. And it's just... Mechanically, he could have been doing stuff. But I just always forgot he was there.
I know what I have to look forward to in this next chronicle.
Maybe. Chris, what were you saying when I interrupted you?
Oh, I was just going to say, a lot of the, maybe not pushing the familiars to the fore as much as possible, is that Craig's familiars were from an
Spirit.
Arcana she didn't have.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Well, no, but I made deals with like a Thyrsus.
Yeah.
Broker a deal for me. Yeah.
But you couldn't do things like buff them and heal them.
Yeah.
Yes, this is true.
Yeah, it's, on that note, one thing I've always wondered is how to handle other invisible entities from the Arcana other than death, spirit, and mind. I mean, ostensibly, right, all the subtle Arcana have a twilight you can exist in.
Technically, even the overt ones, or the gross ones, technically could have a twilight.
Ah, okay.
Get really weird with it.
Yeah, right? So what would a fate-based invisible entity familiar look like? It wouldn't be, changeling, right? It'd be something else, right? Because Arcadia is different than changeling Arcadia. Mage Arcadia is different than changeling Arcadia. So what would it be like? Perhaps that if that had been explored, Weird might have engaged with her familiars more.
Oh, I have notes for that. Because like
I didn't even know that was an option.
If you had started to explore, that was one of the things I was actually ready for. I actually thought it would be Chris digging into Prime and messing with Twilights.
Yeah.
Because what's in Prime Twilight?
I was already doing things.
You're doing a lot.
Yeah, Songbird already had big plans.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one mechanical thing that I was hoping someone would do eventually before Weird got space was use a familiar for the proxy sympathetic casting that happens.
The remote casting.
Being cast through them, yeah.
Exactly. As soon as somebody got a familiar, as soon as I think Ash was the first to get a familiar with Gabe, right?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah, I was like,
I didn't make Gabe a familiar for a a long time.
Oh, that's true.
That's
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's an important distinction. Okay, that's right.
Raven was the first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Weird was the first. Okay, yeah. So yeah, as soon as a familiar appeared, I'm like, oh, I know what's going to happen here. Some seer is going to get just hit with celestial fire.
Well, I'd imagined Weird's familiar made to be like a guardian of the Leaf Theater. So if something had gone on in the Leaf Theater, then for sure she'd have been throwing shit through Maeve left, right, and center.
Okay.
So she was like just the protector and guardian and watch person of that place, because she could stay there and always be around and be alert to whatever was happening.
Yep.
So that's kind of where I envisioned her, because I was afraid that Drew was going to take my theater away from me, and I loved it.
Man, dude, listen, base building, it's probably safe. Like, that is a sacred thing within Drew canon.
Okay.
Famous last words.
That's a good question, because I was curious about how precarious things felt to the players while I was listening. So, Chris, what do you think was the... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, good.
Go ahead.
Well, it was really cool to put down roots, but at the same time, it was kind of scary because we're starting to mess around with more and more powerful shit. And like in Archmage, you can just come in, snap their fingers, and everything I've ever built is gone.
Oh, yeah.
And
We also put up big
nothing I
flashing
can do
neon
about it.
signs
Yeah, that's right.
pointing to us and all of our things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So there was the cool aspect of building a power base, but also the terror of like I'm making myself more vulnerable by doing this.
Yeah.
Welcome to Mage.
Yes.
Did you feel vulnerable, Ash, as a player?
Oh yeah, I had a lot of paranoia when we started scoring with the vampires.
Oh, yeah.
Because my brain, I'm like, I'm going to sleep. If it knows where I live, it can get me.
Yeah.
Also, here's a list of everyone I know that they might know I know. They're all in danger now.
But at the same time, go ahead and suck my blood.
That was
That's since we
later.
were
That
on
was
better
later.
terms. We had a new head vampire who we were kind of cool with.
Yeah. In Ash's defense and to her credit, I thought that that was a good way to bring the splats in for the exploration of the audience. So as much as the rest of the group has, teased about the desire to be friends with all the other supernatural creatures, I thought it was helpful to explore them in the context of Mage and see what different mages thought about them. So even though Atratus was the one that was primarily interested in positive relationships, it was good to see how the others thought about negative relationships. And that happened as a direct consequence of Ash playing a character who wanted to engage those flats.
Yep.
Chris, what did you think was the most precarious thing from your experience? Songbird's pretty strong.
I don't know that Songbird ever... A couple times Songbird felt in danger, but it wasn't ever of dying. Right? It was the moment of, what have I done to Jimmy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big one.
And then me as a player, Drew and I butted heads a couple times because I like to win. And I like to think that I've been actively trying to be better about that.
Well, especially with Mage, where, listen, you can win all you want, but the other guys, and I don't even have to do a rocks fall, everybody dies. Yeah. The other Mage just wins. And so, yeah, that's one of the fun things about being a Mage ST is like, everybody probably shouldn't go for the throat, which, hey, stick around for session 0. We're going to talk about that.
I guess more to my point was failing the trial in El Dorado.
Oh, yeah.
Where, like, Drew and I had some off-screen headbutting because of that. Like, yeah, but, you talk things through and you get over it. And Mage is more of a storytelling thing, especially the way we're trying to play it. So actively trying to be a better person and a better player, I think, is a different form of vulnerability than the question you were asking, but I'm happy to talk about it.
I like that. Yeah. Then I'm curious. Why don't you first answer this question? Do you think that was the most vulnerable point you felt as a player?
No.
Okay.
No, that was when Weird took our toys and ran away to the Guardians.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
We had a whole week of that. And that was, I think, just every one of us was on a different page, and it just didn't show, and it I think Drew has mentioned this before, like, it gave us, like, hey, we should have another talk about safety tools and stuff, and, like, speaking up in the moment of, like, hey, no, that's not okay. Can we hold on a second?
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
You seem to be nodding in agreement, Ash. Did you feel the same way that Chris did?
Yeah, because, like, on my end, I thought I had made it clear how my character was going to feel about this. Apparently not. And so I'm, like, repeatedly trying to just, like, no, don't. And, yeah. We talked about it later. That was better. But
I'm glad it got better.
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, and because basically Ash was like, I feel like the thing that we got, and we're never going to see it again. I'm like, guys, hi.
Look, I wouldn't do that to you.
Right, I'm the storyteller. I'm not going to let one player's actions ruin anything for anybody else, especially because Craig was acting in full good faith that, hey, I'm passing this off to an ally of mine who is going to take care of this and then give it back. And if we had talked it out beforehand, there probably would have been some good inter-character drama, and the players all would have been like grinning and been like, oh yeah, this is great. They're going to get all at each other, but we're all good. But we didn't quite make those connections.
We didn't make that leap.
But fortunately, hey, now we trust each other a little bit better and are definitely going to be talking about, again, hey, stay around for session 0. Because, we're going to talk about some of that kind of stuff.
It'll be a good time.
Mm-hmm. And just to
Craig.
reiterate real quick, sorry for Twitch chat, we're going through pre-existing conditions for people who filled out stuff on the Q&A Discord. We may, depending on time, answer questions in Twitch chat. So if you have them, hang on to them until the end. Thanks.
Pre-existing conditions?
Pre-existing
questions.
The pre-submitted questions, I think, is where you were going with.
Yeah.
Did you remember to get your questions insured?
Yes.
Craig, what was your perspective about that exchange that happened in the Cabal?
I was cold cocked, like completely surprised by the player reactions. And I mean, with retrospect, I understand, and we all worked it out and everything's all fine now. But part of me regrets a little bit that we didn't get a chance to unpack that on screen as characters, because there would have been some great, like there was the whole Guardians prejudice and the characters setting boundaries and stuff that would have come out of all of that, which I thought would have been good to have on screen, but we weren't as players in a position to do that.
Yep. And which is why, fast forward to the weird Oneros dive and her fixing herself. And, and we talked about that off screen. I was like, okay, we're going to talk about this on screen too. Hey guys, we're just not doing this on stream because nobody's comfortable enough to actually go through it all, especially for a public game. So, trying to make some of that stuff open and aware and so we can set a good example.
That was the thing that I might have been willing to do in like just us playing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. There are challenges with the medium and also with shared vulnerability and choices in how we're expressing ourselves to the public, right? Some things you want to keep in the group because, we're having fun together. And an aspect of it is a public performance, but you're not required to always perform your feelings for the public. So,
Yep.
But yeah, like there were some aspects of Atreides' whole backstory that I just never mentioned because I didn't want to get into it publicly.
that's fair. I can appreciate that.
Yeah. And
So,
similar
go ahead,
for Weird
Craig.
too. Yeah, there was a bunch of stuff in Weird's backstory and stuff that just never really came out on screen. You saw like tiny little glimpses of the icebergs from time to time.
Yeah.
But that's good because that's my story now, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah. That's cool. So speaking of story of Weird and Atreides, I want to ask a question that MJB asked on Discord, which is, would Atreides or Weird ever seek the threshold?
No.
And Weird gave that up unless the cabal that she's with goes together, kind of thing. That was in her mind, like that's not an option unless it's everybody goes or I'm still here.
Well, no, because the threshold is becoming an archmage. So you don't. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Oh, okay.
So
I mean,
in Weird's mind, as long as there's a cabal, then she's there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can still be in the cabal and an archmage.
But then
It's not ascension.
Right, but I get where Craig is coming from, because once you're there, then all of a sudden it's like, I'm not part of the team. I'm
Above,
right, and pulling the strings. And so I get it.
makes sense considering
for me,
the Golden Road and the Chantry is a lonely thing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but also the cabal then becomes like a lever against her as an archmage.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
And she wouldn't want to expose her cabal to that potential manipulation.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Ash, you responded pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah.
So you thought about it a lot?
Yeah, in my head, Atreides probably never going above Gnosis 6. Which is a shame for the legacy, because I would like to master this cool new legacy, but legitimately, she doesn't have, like, astronomical aspirations. She's interested in learning as much magic as possible. So, like I said, towards the end, she starts branching out. Like, probably 3 dots in everything.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Like,
interesting.
Death at 5, Mind and Matter at 4.
Yeah.
Maybe put Matter at 5, maybe. But yeah, basically once the events in this are over and she's just like working for the Mysterium and doing research, going out and learning mechanics of everything.
Cool.
And just sort of collecting arcana.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, Haver is very grounded.
Okay. Yeah, she did seem like she was pretty deliberate about making sure she expanded the base of her skills and understood their limits. And with regard to limits, Doc asked a question. Would Atratus be able to unprelate Zolius?
I don't know if she would be able to, but she would try.
She would try and fail. Yeah.
Yeah, like this isn't, she's not going to go into it as hard as Songbird went into their plan, but yeah, just like mechanically what was done to him is horrific. Yeah. And if she can fix it, she wants to try, especially because like she liked Mammon. He was an asshole, but she liked him. And then he shows back up as a seer and he's still an asshole. But it's like a friendly rivalry thing for her, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Although if anyone could fix that, it would be the Ebon Phoenix, right?
Yeah, I don't think it can be fixed though.
At that point, you were directly up against an Exarch.
Yeah, it's like, if I pull your soul out, can I scrub it? Can I pull it out and replace it with a new one? And will that fix it?
No, because it's on the Oneros. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, as chat says, he was an asshole, but he was our asshole.
Yeah.
So,
everybody needs an asshole.
Get stopped up if you don't.
That's certainly an opinion.
It's a fact.
Well, jellyfish don't have one. Anyway, transitioning from biology. Speaking of changes in people and Atratus wanting to stay grounded, Death Fox asks, did Atratus ever ask Weird to change her sympathetic name?
No. That was another thing that I feel like I didn't communicate well, or else this wouldn't have been a question.
Yeah.
Like, I had her whole story as basically her coming to terms with her life and her life now. And just sort of tying a bow on it and instead of being antagonistic towards it, just sort of accepting that this is who you were, that's over. And instead of being bitter about it, looking forward to who you can be now.
That makes sense.
And
so like the early game antagonism against being Emily sort of rubbed off.
Okay.
Emily Miller being dead also kind of useful also for hiding the sympathetic name. It's a bonus.
Yeah, I think killing
not a bug, it's a feature.
Exactly. So, speaking of the early beginnings of the character, I think that's where we kind of see some aspects of what the players were all thinking about their characters, and then of course later on we see that developed further. There's one thing that is somewhat implicit in all of your characters, but I think people would like to hear it from you all directly. Neo Magus asks, what was the main inspiration for each of your characters?
Oh, we talked about this one earlier. For me, it was Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency as sort of an overarching inspiration.
It's a good one. Ash?
Yes. Yeah. Way back when we were doing like a one-shot, we were just writing up characters for that, and I found a drawing of like 20-something-year-old goth girl with her phone out and like ghosts coming out of it.
Oh yes, yeah. The Proto-Atratus. I remember that picture.
And I was just like, oh, this is a concept I want.
Yeah.
And from there, I was having a lot of trouble with her until I started building a playlist. Like, she was one of the first characters I couldn't get an image board on. I couldn't solidify her in my brain. So I started with shitty punk and goth music. And built,
That makes sense. Chris, I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts, especially considering you suggesting earlier that Songbirds a version of yourself.
Yeah, I did not look at what channel I was typing that in, by the way.
I did notice that. I was like, Isabel. Huh. I'm just going to leave that.
I thought that was our chat. And then looked back at my game and like moved on with my day and then went back. I was like, whoop, okay. So session 0 started about 3 hours ago.
Yeah. Even a little hint of it.
Yeah, so like I think this is just a general sort of trend that people kind of notice in role-playing games in general, is that a lot of people make characters that are themselves but tweaked in some way. And Songbird started off as all of the aggressive barbarian. I play barbarians in every game. Barbarians and fighters. That's what I do. I like to hit things with big weapons. And so how do I make the fist wizard is really just how it started. And so pulling in sort of aesthetic choices of like Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey, just that whole MMA like swagger, and then giving that person wizard powers was like when it sort of like catalyzed in my brain a bit. And then once Drew introduced me to the Forge Master Legacy, I don't remember if that was after we had started playing or like
it was
just before it or something like that.
Yeah, because I didn't talk about legacies at all because I didn't want you guys getting sidetracked.
Yeah.
Right, fair. But I read through that and I remembered I haven't kept up with them, but I was a big fan of all the Legend of Drizzt. R.A. Salvatore books. And in there is a scene where Brunner Battlehammer goes in and crafts as a smith his perfect creation. And he's so pleased with this hammer, and he basically vows to never make anything again. And that was the moment I was going for, and fucking got it.
Job done. Mission accomplished, kids.
That was like episode 10, 15 tops, where I was like messaging Drew between weeks. I'm like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah. Like, and I was like, okay, how?
I have the idea for Songbird's last scene. Just tell me how long it's going to be.
Yeah. It was a cool choice. I think it put a really nice note on the story too. Because if you think about it, Songbird's last act is to leave a piece of themselves around to continue the fight and also to inspire others. And it's hard to do that if you ascend or you, I don't know, leave some intangible things. Like an artifact is, regardless of what happens to you, is a really potent representation of your connection to the supernal and what you represent.
Yep.
And on that note, like, as a counterpoint to Atratus, it really works. Like, Songbird being the least human of the Cabal. Like, in the sense of like, no, I am a mage. This is what I am. It is okay to sacrifice myself in pursuit of loftier goals. I don't care about. I have grown unattached to my life. Who I was before my awakening has no impact. In much the same way that Atratus kind of gets there, like, it has no impact on me. Like, Songbird goes back to fight to keep up appearances and to keep their life going. Keep their home and everything like that. But after that return fight with the single strike win, like, that's it. Like, okay, this isn't a challenge, and I know how much better I could be than this. Right? So, like, I can't do that in public. So,
yep.
You see Songbird out there having like a championship bout, and he's like totally bored.
That's right.
Fighting one-handed.
Fucking One Punch Man.
Yep.
Songbird's asleep while it's happening because of life magic.
Well, I mean, and for me, like, and this is the thing that I appreciate because, like, Chris went full into, you know, Songbird is moving beyond that. If I were playing that same character, man, it would be some like Inigo Montoya. I'm going to fight you with my left hand,
yeah.
and like, how many handicaps can I give myself? How you know, and still kick your ass.
Part of that was that would have been a plot of only me.
Oh yeah.
And we were struggling and figuring out with how to kind of divvy up screen time when we all had so many different things to do when we weren't going in on the overarching Grimoire plot. Had we focused more on it, had it been a magic world invades fight space sort of thing, I would have loved to have Songbird go up against someone that is secretly a Promethean.
Ooh. Yeah.
And it's one of those things we never talked about, but I definitely had in the back of my head Songbird frequently boxing with werewolves.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I like that.
Everybody can put themselves back together, so it doesn't matter how hard you fight.
Yep. Yeah, no
Theirs
silver.
just hurts more.
Yeah, yeah.
Just don't kill each other.
Yep.
Yeah. It's interesting how superficially fatalistic it can become when you are detaching yourself from human limitations.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question. When I saw you all exceed Gnosis 5, I was wondering if you were going to indulge in that more, and more inhuman aspects of high Gnosis, as in, like, in simple terms, if you're going to get a lot of your attributes above 5, and how you might play that out. Like, if you think about it, an intelligence 6 character is a very different mindset than one that's intelligence 5.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a one dot. Things are very different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would have been an interesting thing to see, considering how invested you all were in your magical identities. And considering what Chris just said about the supernal being the self, being the consummate arrow.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple things about that is that attributes are expensive.
Yes.
Yep.
They're real expensive.
And there's so many
Attribute
things.
costs the same as a dot of Arcana.
Yeah,
That's an easy choice every time.
And there's so many things you can spend them on, especially when, like, Atratus can just make us super smart or whatever if we really need to. But I think Word was heading that direction. Like, she was getting into Composure 6, Composure 7.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So she was becoming a lot more detached emotionally from things happening around her.
Yeah.
As time was going on.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be unattached. It can be just
would
raw
be perceived as
control. Oh,
yeah,
sure.
She would be perceived as less attached to things that are happening around her. Right? She wouldn't have emotional responses to things that were clearly emotionally.
Right.
Yeah.
Songbird got to Presence 5, and I think we played that well on screen. Like, Songbird did many things that would make people upset at them.
Mm-hmm.
But you just couldn't be mad at
But they talked their way out of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or just for raw likability. It's like, no, Songbird. Like, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? Fight him?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, no. Just because I only got Gnosis 6 because I wanted the next Legacy dot.
Ah, okay.
That was explicitly the only reason. I had intended to stop her at 5.
Yeah.
But the 4th attainment's really fun. So, and then I didn't get to use it. But whatever. But the Ebon Phoenix 4th attainment is great, and I wanted it, so.
And that Legacy was Weird's main reason for getting to Gnosis 8.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Her obsession was to master this legacy that she's created.
Oh, that's right.
So, like, every point she had that she could went into Gnosis until she could get enough to get that last attainment.
That makes sense.
Which
Seems like you all
also
have
had
different goals.
fun stuff. It's like, hey,
Yes.
by the way, everybody's here now. Like, who? Everybody. The entire qual, we're here.
Drew, is there anything you would have liked to see them do as characters or players that they just still haven't, that they didn't do?
Base build. No, actually, yeah. I mean, that's always
We
the
did
answer.
that.
Well, and specifically, like the temple, the Ebon Phoenix temple was intended for them to be like, cool, we're going to renovate this, and this is going to be our secret lair.
Oh,
And-
New Sanctum?
Yeah, and I was like, and this is a cool place, and we can, and everyone was like, nah, this place is creepy. I'm out. I'm like, I made a pretty little garden, and there was like,
I loved it.
right, and I appreciate that.
Weird's
Thank
view
you.
was that was totally Atratus' space.
Right, and then like I
Never would have occurred to Weird to invade it and like this. We're going to make this our home now.
right.
Like, no, that's totally her thing.
Right.
I mean, I would, but nah.
Death
I mean-
Temple.
Oh yeah,
Not your thing.
Nah.
Dude,
Yeah.
you,
Obrimos, Incan God
Sparring
of
with-
Death.
you could be
Well,
sparring
especially-
with Supe every day.
Well, especially once I started hanging out with my boy Judd.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna
That's
take his
good.
ass back there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, actually,
Yeah, I do
that's a
like the
really good
idea that like off screen, she's been doing work there though. Like that
Oh,
was
for
one
sure.
of the things for our big time skip was gather up my new baby phoenixes, initiate them, head back there and start trying to fix this screwed up temple
mm-hmm.
with its piles of bodies and soul jars and like how do we fix this?
Yeah, that's a lot of
Slowly.
cleanup to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking so Judd just came up. And let's start touching on NPCs a little bit, if that's an okay transition for the four of you.
Hey, you're in charge here, man. So
All right.
whatever.
You know, trying to facilitate what you got going on, not trying to control it. So, Tea Time asks, how did Judd handle losing his major touchstone, and how did he get his life together?
Judd had the advantage of having a lot of people who wanted him to survive, and the conspiracy per the deviant rules that were searching
Mhm.
for him were
Yeah.
in the wrong place entirely. Like there was no finding him, and I also don't have to play by the rules, so he didn't even have like most of the fallout of having to pursue and protect touchstones and stuff like that. And some of that was
Okay, yeah.
because Songbird
Didn't have rules.
well, yeah. But I mean, I could have
That's a
pulled
good
this stuff from the
point.
manuscript, but yeah, we didn't have the rules either. But I knew that stuff was there, and like I didn't have to do anything because Chris literally
Mhm.
said, "Oh yeah, no, Songbird and Judd are going to be buddies. They're going to spar. They're going to do stuff. They're going to hang out."
Mhm.
Atratus was checking in and making sure, like, "Hey, you've got to, do you want to stay in a better place? Getting him a job,
Right.
all that kind of stuff."
Yeah.
The Cabal was there, and so
Made
like
him part of the cabal, basically. Yeah.
right, and at the end of the day, it's like Judd had a badass magical support system. Like if you're a
yeah.
deviant and you need some help, find some sympathetic mages.
Get adopted by some wizards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's I think it's really important for characters when they're experiencing some kind of challenging circumstance to have a support group around them. I think that's something you all did pretty well. Is Drew would introduce some character and the
And
players
Ash would adopt
engage
them.
that character. Yeah, exactly. I think it humanizes them. And even though some of them aren't technically human, right, based on a certain definition, we are all human beings playing a game, and we want to relate to creatures like humans, regardless of their level of sentience or sapience or experiences. So I think that's a noble part of it.
Yeah, I love the phrase "humans will pack bond with anything." There's a whole
Oh, yeah.
bunch of Reddit posts and stuff like that
Mhm.
talk about it, and it's absolutely
That's
terrific.
right.
Because I mean, I legitimately thank and support and cheer on my tiny little robot vacuum.
Yeah.
And I make fun of him when he gets stuck on ledges, and I'm like, "How did you get stuck here? All right, come here, buddy." And I talk to him like it somehow sentient.
But I mean, we have essentially the same thing going on in my werewolf game that I've been playing. Like we've adopted
The demons.
many things, but it's just I think a lot of that just has to do with because of who we are as people, right? Like
Yeah.
our wizard power fantasy is to be helpful and empathetic.
To be
Like-
good people.
My no holds barred power fantasy is not
help
to be,
people.
in control of the world, but to be a decent person that can make a difference.
Yeah.
You know?
Gosh, I don't know whatever happened to our generation.
But yeah, like taking in the other people and interacting with them as people was really important to me, because I see a lot of like discourse about these wants to treat them like monsters, and it's like they're people. They were people first, most of them.
Yeah, that's true.
And like there's no reason they are inherently wicked and evil. They can be, but so can normal humans.
Yeah. That was one of the big things that attracted to me to Chronicles of Darkness when you compare Vampire the Requiem, which I compared directly to Vampire the Masquerade, which I had an inkling of and a little bit of an understanding of, and I dug into Vampire the Requiem, and I'm like, Requiem is so much more about, so you're going to try and stay human. Like Vampire the Masquerade, congratulations, you've died. We're going to cover up the fact that you're dead, and you're just going to be one of the living dead now. Requiem goes, so you tell your wife and kids that you now work the day shift.
Or night shift.
Well, no, specifically it called out that like it's an early shift, so you're gone. Like you leave super late at night, go out, you're gone, and you don't come back until after sundown. And so that's their perspective of you, and you're still providing, you're still like caring for them, and you suck blood. And, you know, dealing with that relationship and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's way cooler than, yes, we're going to the vampire club and we're going to, I'm like,
bite me, Flatty.
Yeah. I'm like, eh.
Yeah, exactly. I think Ash is touching on the fact that creatures, splats, people, right, when they acquire a new condition, right, it might not have been something they chose originally.
Yeah.
And so they deserve agency over how they're going to interact with it.
Just kind of a tangent here, but I really enjoyed the interplay between Atratus and Weird. Like Atratus is everything is a puppy, and Weird's like, yes, you're not wrong, but they still have very large fangs, or they still like to suck blood. So
I mean, Atratus who definitely wasn't everything is a puppy. It's that
no, I'm over exaggerating for the humor of it, but
in general,
like,
just like
what was that
exercise
thing
caution, but like
what was that thing that just sucked mana? I can't remember what it was called. That big monster thing.
Oh, you're talking about the Sphinx?
Yeah, the Sphinx.
It's
like,
it was
we need
God.
to, we need to free it. Like, maybe not such a great idea. Yeah.
No, it was more like having something that's entire existence is bondage isn't great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And like all you can do for it, like literally all we can do is to just knock it back out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tragic.
Yeah.
And I wanted to really sort of express that.
Yep.
I think
yeah, but that whole interplay between us, I really enjoyed that aspect of it. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I think your interactions with the NPCs went really well. I think they were varied, and they explored a lot of the story. And Kalasubalu is curious, what's each cast member's favorite NPC and why?
Jimmy. 100% Jimmy was my favorite. It went from being the please don't make me play this NPC to I want any chance I can to play Jimmy.
I wrote up a little description of how I imagined Jimmy, and Drew's like, oh my god, fuck you. You're gonna make me do this. And it's like, yeah, like, I mean, a core part of like Jimmy's like personality was to be that stereotypically like, you know, just fucking New Jersey asshole, right? Like that, like he had a shadow name before he knew he was a mage, right? And so like unpeeling that layer is such a good thing. I really enjoyed all of the interactions that Songbird got to have with Hadramiel.
Hadramiel was fun.
They're two sides of a many-sided $1 coin, and getting to have those like little bits and bobs of discussion. It's like, and Songbird's not the philosophical type, so it came through actions more as things went on, and be like, okay, like I get it, but I'm gonna go do this thing.
Yeah, it was really nice to watch and listen.
I'm probably going to be out in the woods on this one, but I really liked Graves.
Oh,
Graves was fun.
Mm-hmm. He's a good character.
In a I loved to hate him sort of way. Like Graves was like a spider that was like we didn't even see all the webs that he had around us and stuff. And I know that Drew didn't intend him to be that way, but because we completely freaked out the first time we met him, he became so much larger in the story.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Graves. That was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah,
and kicking the shit out of him was just a great moment.
Yeah. I like so many of them so much.
Yeah.
I said thank you.
I really like Hiza. Like, I had in my head this very clear, like, sort of mentor relationship they had going on, like a college professor and his TA.
Yep.
That also helped that, like, in my head, I had a very clear, like, the dude I went to college with. As soon as you started describing Hiza, it's like, oh, it's him. Yes. So he was, like, instantly a person in my brain. And yeah, I'm still sad that I messed up his obsession.
He'll get over it.
There's this very well-regarded professor at Virginia Tech that taught this like world geography course, and he has a comic book for the course all about the different parts of the world, and he goes by the Plaid Avenger, and like plaid fedora and mask, and it's amazing. And that was Hiza in my head every minute of that campaign. Like, it's like, yeah, okay, I got this. I know who this guy is. Same kind of thing. I'm surprised you didn't say werewolf boyfriend, Ash.
Werewolf boyfriend is very good, but honestly, like, we didn't have a lot of like real interactions.
Not
was more
on
of a-
screen, yeah.
Yeah, and then off screen this happened because I didn't want to role play out dating a werewolf.
Stick around to session 0, guys. We're going to talk about that.
And we were already focusing on a werewolf relationship. Speaking of NPCs.
True.
So, what is the outcome of both JB and Camo asked some questions about the long-term fates of different NPCs. So let's ask about Titus and Alicia. Drew, have you thought about what happens to them 20 years in the future?
I mean, they date, they have kids. Like, it's an awkward situation when well, I've got to go be involved in this ritual. Oh, I've got this right. Okay, so we're going to have Aunt Atratus watch the kids. And,
no, that's got to be anti-weird.
Yeah, I was going to say weird's probably going to, yeah. But yeah, it's, it's that, that situation of where they're kind of, bounced around and stuff like that. So, but yeah, they're, at the end of the day, Titus has got the entry level job, and he really doesn't have a chance to elevate within Mage Society other than the fact that he's tied to probably one of the better cabals. And no, he doesn't ever get to awaken, sorry, but that's just he's too involved. He's not going to have some great revelation. He's seen so much shit. He's dating / married to a werewolf. He's not going to get that hint. The idea of him awakening as a Thyrsus was definitely there in my head, but I was like, that's a bit too much fanfic, and everything ties together nicely. I'm like, and it's fun to have Titus as as the fun and cool just sleepwalker who's like, all right, sure, let's get involved in this, because if everybody awakens, then it kind of loses the fun. It's like everybody gets superpowers. It's like Jimmy Olsen needs to be Jimmy Olsen.
Sorry, Jimmy. Yeah. You have to stay here with the mortals, so there's an interesting contrast in abilities. Yeah, that's true. Jimmy did.
Sure, okay.
We could use a different name.
Lois Lane.
Yeah. All right, so let's see. Here's a question, which is a slight variation on the one that Neomegus asked. If any of your characters had died, would you have wanted to resume play as one of the NPCs, or would you have wanted to create a new PC?
I was fully prepared to be network at any given moment.
I would have been very tempted to be Shanna because I made her character sheet and just loved this character.
Shanna's terrific.
But personality-wise, she's not joining a city cabal to come hang out in a warehouse district and do city politics. No. That's why I had as her backstory why, like, it's like, yeah, she and Travis met and they kind of tried to date and then realized that just, no.
Nope.
I like you. We have vastly different lifestyles. This is not just, this can't be a thing.
Yeah, country mouse meets city mouse. Yep.
I think I would have gone with a new character. If
Yeah.
that ever come up.
Knowing Craig, that in no way surprises me.
Yeah, that
And
makes
it
sense.
might have been a character from like the Leaf Theater Players or something.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, some of those were good. I was
There
reading the
there
pages
were
on
a
Honka.
ton of NPCs
There were a
that
lot
Craig
of
made
them.
for me that I never really had a good opportunity to pull in.
That's fine.
They're there on Conca.
They have little bios, some of them.
That's great. There's so much there. You know, you all brought so much into the campaign and established so much for the setting that didn't get to be explored as thoroughly. Is there, Drew, are there aspects, the little story hooks or different side quests that you wish that people had?
Yeah,
Had done.
there's a lot. To list them all would be kind of ridiculous, but yeah, there's definitely
All
some
right.
stuff.
Give us the big three.
Tell
Huh?
us about a few of them.
Give us
Oh,
the big
yeah,
three
yeah.
or the big one.
I mean, like, some of the big ones were the Elder Vampire.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
You
Yeah.
guys
Stuck
like,
in a warehouse.
oh, we're just gonna leave that in the warehouse and we're done with it. And you're done with it? All right, cool. Because like the Consilium can has
Yeah.
things to do with it, but okay, sure.
Just like, that's their problem now.
All
Moving
right,
on.
sure. Digging in more into Abaddon, which never really
yeah.
came up too much, but there was that. Because Abaddon is not about to like turn over and just like, he would have been a really good ally in anything fucking over the Panopticon.
I think
if
he
you
was
guys
like
had,
the only seer that we liked.
Mhm.
Well, like
Sure, yeah.
I mean, I legitimately liked him and his weird bug men.
Oh, dude, the
Yeah.
Myrmidons were like
Yeah,
one of my
so-
favorite.
I
Go
love
ahead.
Myrmidons.
So, from a Songbird perspective, Abaddon was really cool. And I think, to me at least, is the tipping point where Songbird decided, yeah, I should go ahead and start working on this project and get it done. Because I think Songbird understood Abaddon and understood where he was coming from. And if Songbird stuck around and did arrow things for 5-10 years,
turn into an Abaddon.
he almost certainly would have
Oh, wow.
left and joined and been a seer.
That's insightful.
Like you can't do a violence that long without it being like the arrow. They have a great line of like, violence should never be the answer, but it should always be an answer.
Yeah.
And like, it's not that far to go to violence is how I get things done. Violence is how I control things.
Yeah.
You know,
And considering Abaddon was made as evil Songbird.
designed to be that. Yeah. So it's good.
He even had an Eidolon. I was hoping Songbird would get an Eidolon eventually, but didn't need one.
Mm-hmm.
So what's another one, Drew?
Oh, good lord. And any of the vampire politics, getting involved with Tassos and like, I really thought Atratus and Weird, or at least Atratus, would get in on his research and try and figure out. Yeah.
I figured that was probably a thing she would have been doing off screen.
Yeah.
Like, Julia is not a vampire she wants to be friends with. Tassos is, actually. Like, he's someone she can...
He's closer to the adventure librarian archetype.
Yeah, she can sort of relate to him, and also he's a super old Greek guy,
Mhm.
which she's like, you're not old enough to have been around during the time I'm interested in, but...
Oh, and that was the other thing. If you had ever suggested to Tassos to going back and learning about ancient Greek, fuck it, let's go. He would have been on for it, but that's the little side one off, like, well, this is Atreides and Tassos doing a thing that we just couldn't really do.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like they are, I don't know if friends is the right word, but like decent acquaintances.
Compatible.
Yeah.
Colleagues.
Colleagues is probably a good one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Boy leagues.
So and speaking of Tassos, did he ever do anything with all the blood he took from Songbird?
Oh yeah, Tassos can Tassos can tap into Mage Sight. Like
just like
by the time he is done with his experimentation, that he starts with Songbird stuff, he requires a lot of vitae to do it, but he could turn on any Mage Sight he wants.
Wow,
nice.
Which isn't too scary at first until you start to think about the implications.
Till he turns on Prime Sight and looks at the prince at Shiko.
See what's going on with Shiko. Spotting people who, life, and seeing who's particularly vibrant. Who's all sorts of wacky shit. Yeah,
would be really good. Actually, no. Let me ask something else. So, Tea Time asks, what were the consequences of creating that domain and putting it on Shiko?
Oh yeah. For Shiko, she is the boss queen bitch of all New York, and anybody who stepped up to her just found themselves like they could absolutely challenge her, and every challenger, not that accidents happen, but they just couldn't get a base behind them to support them, or physical challenges, just like the arena was always bad for them, or anything like that. Just everything just kind of fell off from her, and so she begins a long and not really terrible, but for the vampires possibly terrible reign that goes for a while. Meanwhile, the mages are like, hey, by the way, and she just could never, same thing, flipped around, could never get a good argument up against the hierarch, could never bring any real threat of force. And so at the end of the day, the vampires aren't tamed, but they're a far more malleable group for the mages. Now, that's only at the political level. Individually, another vampire finding you on the street, well, how's your arcana?
That's a good point.
Be more amenable to diplomacy.
I mean, just at Shiko's level,
Yeah, I think there are all kinds of different ways that stuff like that could have went, right?
And for the chat who are asking about the coil, I have explained the coil. That is it. He can turn on Mage Sight.
So I'm going to ask a question. This is good. I'm curious about this. I think I know the answer, but Neo Magus wants to know, considering everything that's happened and the wealth of setting material you created through the course of playing the story, Drew, do you have any plans to revisit this particular setting?
Revisit, no. Put it all in some kind of codified PDF that people can just rip through and dig into my notes. And yes, that there is a plan for that sometime in the future.
New York Unveiled.
Yeah. But apparently that might also be part of the whole Tome of the Pentacle. So, wow. Onyx Path, hit up your boy, and I will happily. But for real,
HMU Drew.
Yeah, I'm like, I will probably write up the Onyx Path, the Occultists Anonymous, the Rookery Chronicle guide or something like that, and just basically put character sheets from our characters, other people as NPCs, or not other people as NPCs, other NPCs, notes and stuff like that. It won't be super detailed, but be one of those like, hey, you want to like grab some of these NPCs and throw them into your own chronicle? Do you want your adamantine arrow guys to have to deal with red dread? Here you go. Here's the notes that I A, wrote, and B, the ones that I imagined in my head that never actually got written down. Yeah.
Mhm.
But that is a down the way kind of thing.
Okay. So I'm curious. Speaking of things down the way, if there are any long-term consequences in the story of 2 members of a small cabal founding or reinstituting legacies.
Yeah, the cabal ends up really, really popular. Well,
The
infamous?
focus of a lot of attention.
Famous and infamous, yes.
Kind of a big deal.
attention. Kind of a big deal, especially because like Weirds is very unique in the fact that it is a legacy about cabals, which is very, very different. And then Atreides, well, if anybody asks the Ebon Phoenix, they're like, yeah, no, it's an Atlantean, thing. And everyone's like, yeah, okay, sure. And they're like, no, really, let me introduce you to this Ebon Phoenix Goetia. And everyone's like, okay. And the Ebon Phoenix is like, yes, I come from Atlantis. And everyone's like, but they could just say that, right? Like at rank 5 mind, you can just create a Goetia that thinks it's from. Yeah, but every time we investigate and look at this thing, and there's a whole lot of people who are like, well, this is just one thing of evidence that says they're from Atlantis.
Of course, yeah. I bet the Free Council was saying that a lot.
Yeah.
And it's subjective. It's just metaphorical.
I have this picture of a fucking like J. Jonah Jameson Silver Ladder lector reading a fucking article in the Mage newspaper. I lost track of that sentence, but about Weird's legacy, and just be like, why did none of my people think of this? It's like, it is the most like fucking Silver Ladder bullshit.
Yep.
And to have a guardian have founded it is like,
So yeah, that's
love it.
Yeah.
That Monty Python skit, they come in, nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I fully expected that to happen with the Rookery a lot, just like showing up in random places. You get a sympathetic connection, and then everyone's there, right?
Yeah,
Like,
well,
you just
and
collocate
because
all kinds of random things.
When we were creating it, and I was talking with Weird, and we were setting up the rules and some of the extra freebie stuff it gets because it's limited to just her cabal. And she was like, oh, we can all teleport to a place together. I said, not exactly. Weird can cast teleport, show up there and be like, hi, everybody, snap her fingers, phoom, and everybody else shows up. And I'm like, you can pull a full on, Avengers Assemble, and it's, oh, hi.
I'm Prince. Allow me to introduce you to the revolution.
Right.
Yeah, totally. That's hilarious. Let's see. Let me get another question for y'all. Let's see what's a good one. Oh, here's one. Yeah. MJB asks if there were ever any points where, Drew, you genuinely thought about killing one of the characters?
All the time.
Especially every time we did something
Especially
stupid.
Songbird. Songbird shows up and like, well, I'm just going to undo this. That's fair. So, yeah. So, Prime 5, 4? Yeah, Prime 4, just undoing spells. Yeah, and I'm just like...
Yeah.
Okay, that's the thing I'm gonna have to
remember. It's a lot of
remember.
paradox, though.
It's potentially a lot of paradox, yeah.
But I mean, because that's what I thought I could do from the get go with dispelling and stuff
magic.
like that.
You can.
You have to have all the arcana though.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm not going to get a dot of every arcana just so I can bust up magic. I'll just get extra dots of prime.
That's a good point.
Yep. So, yeah, that was one of the more frustrating things. But no, I've never thought about actually flat out killing any of the characters just because it's, as a storyteller, it's not that fun. It's far more interesting to break their morale and their heart. And and Songbird, for all my antagonism, like had some of the best, like, this is a dumb idea, but I'm going to do it anyway stuff, like Jimmy. And, so Jimmy's blind now. and you have to deal with that. Well, that wasn't me.
Yeah.
Hold his feelings.
Yeah.
Yep.
Were there any points in the story where you thought we might?
That you might die? Yes. Especially going in and going to deal with Mr. Graves was potential. The Stalker had a potential of just absolutely massacring you all because if he had actually had a chance and
that goddamn action economy, man.
Well, the action economy and the fact that you guys actually realized you could summon him to you and teleport him to you, I was like, because I had his character sheet, I had spells, and I was like, he doesn't, I mean, like, because there's the whole, like, Clash of Wills, and those rolls were super important, because if Weird had not made the Clash of Wills, all, like, Stalker literally would have turned around, who's trying to teleport me somewhere?
Yoink.
And yanked, and
dig back.
Weird would have showed up and been bound, and would have been in the middle of a Panopticon prelacy, and just in all sorts of bad news territory, and everybody would have watched Weird go away with no space magic themselves. And it was also before Weird had the everybody gets teleported to me. It would have been like, cool, Weird, we'll talk off camera, everybody else, Weird is gone. And that would have just been it.
You know, Drew, I don't know if this is intentional, but I want to commend you for not having, or I think bending the rules a little bit, in that you allowed all members of the Cabal to contest arch magic frequently, so Imperial magic frequently. Like when you went to go down that Golden Road, and Songbird dispelled the veiling on that iris, right? Technically, according to Supernal Dispellation, you can't dispel Archmastery. Correct. And Archmages also win all
Clash of Wills.
Clash of Wills automatically.
That would be the key point. Yeah, they can't do anything to Arcana 6 and above, they win Clash of Wills. But I read that as can decide to put it another way. Oh my gosh, I've already forgotten his name, but the golden one, whatever the fuck I called him. Yes. Basically, he was just like, oh, somebody's gonna go check out El Dorado. All right. Like, and it was there to keep other people from seeing it, but at the end of the day, it was not something to keep people out, because El Dorado is its own trial. And so, like, he was like, nah, I put a book in there that I'm trying to keep an eye on, but there's a bunch of other stuff in there. Maybe they're not even after that. Wasn't really a concern.
I read that spell a bunch of times over the last 2 years, and I never saw that line.
Yeah, so it
the spell is not potent enough to dispel Archmage's spells.
Yep. Yeah, so it doesn't matter if it's...
If I had realized you had read that spell, I probably would have reminded you about it and made you go, what are we doing? And why did this work?
Yeah, it's cool. I was surprised when it happened. I was like, maybe this is going to be a consistent element. Because regardless of the practice, an Archmage can cast a practice of veiling, right? And it doesn't have to be Imperial magic. It's just cast by an Archmaster, and according to what's listed there. And so, touching on what Craig was saying earlier about wanting some more creative thaumaturgy, and how, hey, you shouldn't just consider the spellbook to be shackles, right? It's kind of nice that in the story of the Rookery, right, we got to see an exploration of the various ways that the default mechanics might inhibit some of the story. So a lot of mechanics in the game are good support for a cool narrative. Some of them, if it seems like, hey, Songbird should be able to push through this so some cool stuff can happen, let's just make it happen. It's easy. It's a good choice. So that's a really cool thing. I really appreciate that.
I wish I knew Chris hadn't read that. Because that would have been, because I was like, Chris didn't react to the fact that he was able to push through that spell.
Yeah, I was like, oh, wow.
Okay, we'll just
So in my head, it made sense that if an Archmage is trying to do a thing to you, you're not going to be able to stand up against the weight of that spellcasting. But if you're trying to sneak in past something they've put up, you can wiggle a hole through it. That's not hard.
And very specifically, the intention there was you would use fate magic. to basically bypass the rules.
That's what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
Is that you're just going to use level 2 fate.
Yep.
And be like, all right, bypass
Change the
conditional
rules
trigger.
Yeah, but I was like, at this point, I'm like, I'm not going to have Songbird fail just so we go, okay, weird, you now roll a spell, and okay, now you're through.
Which was a good call narratively. I thought that was really good.
Yeah, it worked out great.
Mhm.
I was also frustrated, Chris, on your behalf. You know how you referenced earlier that you and Drew had a conversation about failing a challenge. I was also frustrated on your behalf. I was like, you all get here, right? And there's life magic to make sure that you satisfy a certain conditional trigger. And then there's the dispellation. And then there's the fighting and all this stuff. And it's like, of course Songbird is going to come to the end and get the good shit. And it's like, oh, well,
This gossamer little thing.
I guess sometimes things don't work the way you expect.
Like as I understood, as I had understood what Drew had been saying and everything, it made sense to me that it was like a sort of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, like test of faith, like kind of thing, and just prove that you're a mage and be tested by this veil. And I was like, nope. I lose.
Well, and like for me, from my perspective, it was really cool because that's kind of Songbird's character is he bashes his head against things until he gets through. It's sort of his modus operandi.
I mean, and I'll be honest, it's a very Obrimos thing too. Is direct.
Yeah, I like watching Songbird sort of get away from that as time went on, though.
Yes,
like watching this character grow.
Yeah.
From someone who just banged their head against everything to like
and headcanon wise, I think that trial might have been the catalyst to say maybe this isn't bash my head against it till it gives up.
Yeah, that's true.
And start looking at other ways around problems and stuff.
Yeah, being more subtle.
I don't know if that was really.
I don't think that was Songbird bashing their head against it though. Like it was a rare moment of Songbird thinking and having a feeling about how a thing should be. Instead of just, I'm gonna fuck this thing. I'm gonna walk past it. It was like this is how Songbird imagined. Were Songbird creating this trial, this is what they would create, right? And so that's more what it was. But after like losing there, it then is like, okay, fine. If that's how people are gonna do things, then I'll just I made my entire life beforehand about destroying things. Now, fuck every spell in my way. Like, I don't care what you do. I can take you down. I don't care if you know. Like, if anything, Songbird became more direct over time. And how I view it. At least in their gnosis, right? Right. And like how they think about magic and goals and stuff.
Seems like a great transition to do Songbird question hour lightning round.
Yes.
Lightning round. There were a few questions about me, huh?
Yeah. There were quite a few. Songbird's a popular character. Let's see. All right. So first one. Yes, you do live, Camo. All right. First question is, what are the exact ramifications of Songbird making an artifact?
It'd be
exact.
Goodbye, Songbird. Hello, artifacts. That's it. We mentioned this
Goodbye,
one.
Songbird. Hello, Songbird.
Cool. Great. Second question. How long would Colossus have held the feather for?
Oh, man. Much longer than the mana Songbird accumulated. If I remember correctly, I wonder if I have my notes, but I'm not going to try and find them. I believe Colossus was good for 4 hours, at which point he would collapse and the whole thing would fall apart. And if he collapsed, it ended.
Yeah.
There was no, because I mentioned I had a little score thing and stuff like that. No, if Colossus dropped it, the whole thing just falls apart, incomplete.
All right. Well, then I'm glad that didn't happen. What does the artifact do when activated?
I mean it. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
It is. No, I said a D&D spell before, and everyone told me I was wrong. The divine weapon that is like a floating
spiritual weapon. Yeah.
Spiritual weapon. Sorry. That is how I imagined it. Is that you can be sitting there, sword and shield, fighting, and you're like, no, hold on, and then just like toss them into the air, and then they're around you, shielding and fighting for you, while you can do whatever you need to do. And given that Songbird had acted it as a combat medic, and stuff like that too, like absolutely, like fucking lay on hands somebody real quick and get them back up, and like they are. I mean, and I think I can't remember if you said this on screen or off screen earlier, but like the Songbird still being around to help with the fight and everything like that. Like
exactly. Yeah, so,
it got your roads, didn't it?
Mm-hmm. It got, I believe, all of Songbird's rotes and praxis as rotes. The rotes are in there as a grimoire. The praxis are in there as the Sword and Shield can cast all of Songbird's praxis as spells.
Cool.
You can activate it. So yeah.
Hell yeah.
And it does some other things too. But yeah, I mean, like it's intelligent. Yeah, it is like, and it's one of those things that like if the Cabal messes with it or figures, and it's also very heavily tied to the Aether. If the Cabal did not use it and it just sat on the wall, somebody would come to remove it to use it. And that was actually a I
think we all know who that would be.
Potentially. But I mean, specifically for it was basically Weird's opportunity to basically be the lady in the lake and passing on Excalibur to like somebody shows up and like, hey, listen, we heard about this artifact and fate says we need it, and just watching Weird's eyes just boggle, be like, okay, and grilling them and figuring that out.
And I'm kind of imagining it the other way around is Weird, like reading these things. Okay, I need to bring these somewhere now, and just bamfing in and say, you need these, and then
also quite potentially possible, yeah.
But yeah, Weird would definitely want to see them used because they're not there as decorative.
They're not show weapons.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. So it's good to know that we could expect that. I'm sorry, Craig, go ahead.
No, I was just reading a comment in the chat. Weird is more the lady in the attic rather than the lady in the lake.
Cat lady in the lake, maybe.
So it's good to know that someone will eventually use the artifact. Then, Chris, let's use a little bit the remaining time before break to hear your feelings and thoughts about Songbird's ending.
So I talked earlier about wanting to win, right?
Yeah, totally.
I thought it was fitting. I had a rough weekend after that, honestly. Like,
well, I think we all did.
And like ending the show, and like, but like, damn, I did the thing too good.
Yeah.
But like, it's tough to be upset that you got what you wanted out of the ending of your character, right? I advertised this as one of two options, and if I wasn't okay with one of two options, then I should have demanded that it be one. And made Drew talk me down from it, right?
Bear in mind.
And a week before that, Drew messaged me and said, hey, do you want to like write this up? How do you want to do this? Or, I can have some, some choices for you to make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I thought, I did. I will say this. I thought it was going to be kind of a choose your own adventure kind of thing. I didn't know I was going to have to interface with some asinine game. I say asinine jokingly, but like playing a game you don't know the rules of fucking sucks.
Yeah.
when you're trying not to be this like person who has to win, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and some of it is you never use the let me check it out, option. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you maybe did once.
I did it twice.
Once to let Weird look at it.
Oh, and then once
I will say, if anyone ever wants to implement these things, and you want to do something like this for a character, and they should be really good at assessing how a thing is going if they're like this wonderful craftsman. Don't tie the how's it going stat to something they only have 3 dots in.
Yeah,
that was frustrating.
Well, you're talking about the occult, I think?
Yeah, where you're like, you can assess it and roll into occult. I'm like, how about wits crafts?
Yep. Well, and bear in mind, because it wasn't a crafts thing, and you're welcome to retcon the game, but no, because at the end of the day, like when I brought that up, I was hoping going to be one of those. Well, here is that one last shot of I need a mind mage. Jimmy was right there. So yeah, there was some of that kind of stuff of like get the and also I thought you were going to get a lot more mana than that. Like I was prepped for, I don't remember what the cap was, but it was beyond the 6 hours of and I was anticipating you threw a lot of skill, like a lot of dots in all at once, and I was expecting just a little sprinkle of this. Yeah, I know. Right. But I mean, some of that is, comparing characters, and I was like, these are the options, and, what you select and stuff like that. If anybody has seen the video there of the woman reacting to the guy putting the blocks into a bucket, is a wonderful little game designer thing. And they're like, oh yeah, all these different shaped blocks that go into this little bucket. It's a little kids game thing. It's like, okay, where's the triangle go? And you're like, oh, it goes into the triangle. No, it goes right here into the square because it is able to fit in there, and just everything goes into the square box. And that's when you were doing it, I was like, I get it. As I watched you just throwing, I'm going to throw in this and this and this and this. And I'm like, all at once?
Only had 9 turns.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Songbird was always a go huge or go home kind of person, right?
Yeah, for sure. But like I said, I had some feelings about Songbird not achieving total victory, but I think it is a perfect capstone to that character that they did it too good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and at the end of the day,
I'm thankful for a really interesting way to interact with that, and not just have it be, well, yeah, we did this thing. And
roll wits plus crafts 5 times in a row.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I am thankful for that finish to Songbird's story, both from the game and the mechanics itself too.
That's great. To support the notion of it not being a loss, right? Considering you mentioned that Songbird struggled with the attachment to the material, right? As they were growing in their gnosis, and then they're leaning into their magical identity, with still being in the fight, right? Songbird will forever be a part of, will be a fabric of the world, be a representation of the supernal that can't happen if there's nothing left of you except for just some Sariras and some discussion of who you were, right?
I had written up the Sarias too. Yeah, Sariras. I'm not, but yeah,
the Srirachas.
Yeah, the Srirachas. Yeah, I had written that up in case Songbird ascended. And we can talk about that or not, but yeah, it was. I was pretty pleased, and I was like, oh yeah, this is good.
Clarification point though: Songbird did not struggle with their detachment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Post Gnosis 4 or 5. Songbird's virtue became. It wasn't detachment. I forget what word we came up with it, but it was just essentially like that sort of Buddhist, like
kind of Zen.
Oh, I see.
Zen.
Okay,
Zen, more of like a Zen detachment, like like a purposeful, mindful letting go, like becoming more and more okay with like this will happen.
Kind of stoic. Yeah.
You have to become
Sorry, we're
I don't know.
right into chat.
I don't know. Stoic has some like weirdly toxically masculine vibes to me, but
and dispassionate isn't
how I feel
quite
about
it
that.
either, because and some of it is at the end of the day, it's
still Songbird,
right? Yeah, but
and vibes are hard to, or virtues are hard to put into.
They are challenging, and they're also challenging to remember when you're in the audience and you don't see them on an overlay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of, session 0 in just a few minutes, and we'll be talking about virtues and vices. Hang around.
Yeah. Like, enough for the artifact. I was repeatedly telling Chris that you need to tell Atratus this. Like,
yeah.
The longer you don't, the worse it will be. And I just feel like she probably never accepts the artifact. Yeah. It's just like, cool. I would still rather have my friend.
Oh yeah.
That's a neat weapon.
Yeah.
I would rather have the person.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really sweet.
That's why it was their virtue, right? Like they should have been striving to, and like long-term aspiration was prepared to ready to let go, be ready to say goodbye, and like have to achieve all these things, right? So yeah, Songbird, especially with them living together and stuff like that, like Songbird and Atratus being close, and then Songbird going,
I'm gonna leave now.
This is gonna happen.
By the way, I'm out.
It sucks. Like it sucks. Like I did not, and that's why I didn't have Songbird fight back in character because they realized it. Like they knew, but they still like were choosing magic over the Fallen, and even if that was life with the Cabal and life with Atratus too, like.
I had a whole bunch of thoughts, like, off camera as well. Just, like, all these things I wanted to say that I forgot when we came back recording. Like, here's the list of all the ways I wanted to tear into you. High up on there is spraying this on us when we're trapped in a car.
Oh, yeah.
On the other side of
it
the
was a
street.
super shitty, cowardly thing to do, and that's exactly why I had Songbird do it.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Ooh. Do we have any more questions there that we
We got quite a few, or I shouldn't say quite a few. We have a couple, but I don't know. Most of the ideas have already been expressed, and you all have touched on it.
Cool.
Really well. So
Can Atratus and Weird talk about how they end?
Sure.
that sounds great.
Yeah.
Yes. Please.
Do you want to go?
Sure. So at the end of her life, after the whole Cabal and maybe rises and falls or whatever else happens, Weird sort of breaks a few rules and goes back in time and appears at the bedside of Great Aunt Kate on her last day, as she's like about to die that night, and takes her hand. Kate doesn't know who she is. She just says that, do you remember this young girl who was your relative? And she says, she sent me, and takes her into the Anima Mundi, where is the land of all the stories that Kate had told her about when she was a kid, and is never heard from again.
Yeah.
Bails on the Cabal, you say?
After all of that, and maybe the Cabal is done, or as we
Oh, sure.
Yeah. I mean, we're just only got a limited amount of time anyway. So, yeah.
And when you can just go back in time whenever, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And for Atratus, it's, I already said, like, sort of really diving into working for the Mysterium, like job as an archivist.
Yeah.
Doing a lot of the writing for things, because she has experience doing academic writing. So there's a whole section that she wrote already.
All the Geists.
Which is on the Geists, because there wasn't anything in there about them. But just sort of reaching out and learning the basics of all magic, really. Like, she's not going to be incredibly good at any of it, but she's going to be competent because she's got her whole life and all of this to learn. And like, it's also why she's not reaching for Ascension or Archmastery. She doesn't. There's stuff here that is interesting and needs to be dove into. So
probably get along. You wonder if she ends up jumping ship and joining the Free Council, because that's super Free Council shit.
Yeah, I really like working for the Mysterium though. Like magical archivist, and then probably fewer like field trips to go actually acquire the things, but she still does those occasionally because it's fun.
Yep.
And she's also one of the most experienced mages in the Mysterium for doing that. So she'd probably get topped a lot for it.
Yeah, like she's not trying to become I lost the title for what Oceans is, curator. But just like a head researcher.
Right. Boss enchanter around. Hey, I need you to go get me this thing.
I like it.
And because it came up in chat real quick, and because, hi, I'm the showrunner, and so I'm going to do whatever I want. What about Network? Network becomes Hierarch. If you didn't see that coming, you're not paying attention. New
York is his,
and yes, Rose did get married to her fiance because, like, they were engaged. Rose has a whirlwind of trying to figure out this whole magic thing. And then, okay, I have enough of a baseline. I can have this life and the sleeper life. And she has, good conversations with Oceans Under Mountains, and goes, oh, okay, yeah, no, I can totally do this, because looking to Songbird, Weird, and Atratus for advice on how to have a sleeper life and this.
I mean,
well, Songbird
did. Gets one.
But Songbird didn't have relationships like in like romantic terms outside of being a sleeper, or outside of being a mage.
Yeah, Songbird didn't have a spouse or children.
Right. I'm sure there was dating, but
yeah, like Atratus gets a mundane life.
Oh yeah, especially once the therapy steps up. Yeah. Well, the bar, I guess I should say, not a therapy. Well, I mean, she may eventually do that. So cool.
As a bartender,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's part of the job description.
There are additional questions we could ask, Drew. I was just trying to provide an opportunity for a pause if you wanted to break.
As much as we can sit here and talk about it, we do have this other thing.
There's another thing. And I want to have mercy on poor Ash.
And I could use a break myself.
Oh yeah, that too.
Just, for biological reasons.
So overall, thank you very much, Ralph, for moderating, and thank you all for submitting questions. I'm going to leave that Q&A questions place open. So if you have other questions, I'm going to leave it open for next week or two, because of the YouTube video and stuff like that. And we may answer questions as they come up. Please don't at us with your questions. We'll just answer them as we see them. And please keep using the spoiler tags. That way you don't ruin 160 episodes for other people. So we're going to get our break. I'm going to go make a big announcement on Discord to tell everybody, hey, it's session 0 time. And we'll be back, and I'll have more coffee, and we'll announce what setting we're placing our new campaign in. Chronicle.
Ooh, yeah. Alrighty, everyone.
Weird
bell. Yeah, we'll figure that one out too. Back in a bit.